This is Calvin Castine. I'd like to welcome everyone to another annual special edition here on Hometown Cable. For the past several years, we've imposed on Mr. Chris DeGrandpre, the Superintendent of Schools at Northeastern Clinton, to go over the school budget. And Chris has agreed to do that again, and we're doing this a little bit earlier in the year than we usually do, Chris. How come?
We are, Calvin. For the first time this year, all of the public schools in the state of New York will be voting on the same day, May 19th. So that backed up the budget development process, and we had our budget approved by the school board on April 6th, and we've been involved in some hearings and visits with the community about the budget, and we'll have one more next week, but we'll be voting earlier this year.
Okay, and the final budget hearing will be 18th, I believe?
Yes, over here at the senior high school in the Francis Bud Moore Auditorium at 7:30 p.m.
Okay, do you think the public is aware that it's coming earlier this year? That you think it's going to be a low turnout because?
Well, I don't know whether the turnout, what the turnout will be. There's been a lot in the media about the fact that we have a new process, and of course we've run our legal advertisements, and there have been a number of articles in the various newspapers locally. So I hope everybody will be pretty well attuned to it. In addition, we have available these budget booklets, which are in 15 or 20 locations in the community and available in each school. So I think our efforts to reach out to the community are similar to the past.
Okay, and I know two of our neighboring school districts, Shazy and Northern Adirondack, are having their budget hearings on the 12th.
Mm-hmm.
We have a school board meeting on the 11th. I'm going to try to get this on the 11th so people can catch it early and catch it after the meeting, whatever the case may be. But if they do have any additional questions after seeing this, come on the 18th.
Certainly come on the 18th, and certainly call the district office here at 298-8242, and we'd be happy to answer any questions they have about the proposed budget.
Okay, I imagine you're going to cover this somewhere in your prepared, wherever you prepared, but the question that comes to my mind is the new STAR program.
Yes.
You want to explain what that is?
Certainly.
And how it's going to impact the rest of us?
Certainly be happy to. It is also covered in summary in this popular budget document. It's referred to as the School Tax Relief Program, STAR, and Chapter 389 of the Laws of 1997, State of New York, created this program to help reduce property taxes for, to begin with, senior citizens, and then after the first year, there's an enhanced version which would affect all other citizens. So there will be this program in place as we go into the new school year, the 1998-99 school year. Senior citizens would have had to apply for this program not later than March 2nd of 1998, and there was a lot of advertising in the newspaper and communication in the community about this earlier this year. But basically they can get a significant savings on their school taxes under this program. And the district applies to the state for the amount of the exemption or the reduction in the tax levy as affected by the exemptions provided by the STAR program.
So the important thing, I think, is, in addition to the fact that these senior citizens will be saving money, is that the rest of us don't pick up the slack. The state does.
The state,
we do through the state.
Yes, but the state will reimburse the districts for the difference.
So on their tax bill, will it show their assessment, their tax levy, and will it show a deduction? How does
it will show all? It will show all of that information. It's my understanding. We haven't seen the actual prototype of the bill, but it's our understanding that it will be clearly outlined on the bill as to the difference, and it will be a significant difference for those who qualify.
Qualify based on income, I assume?
It's based on income, and $60,000 is the upper limit of the threshold on that.
And any idea what the senior citizen age is considered?
I believe, gee, I'm not sure of that, Calvin. I wanted to say 65, and I think maybe it is. But I think it is 65, but I I'm hesitating a little bit on
Yeah.
that, but I think it's 65.
Uh, They wouldn't affect anybody right now anyway, because they haven't applied by March 2nd. It's too late for this year.
We're
but
told a good many people applied.
I would hope so. I
Yeah.
would hope everybody who's eligible did,
Mhm.
because it's just the money that they'd be taking out of their pocket for nothing if they didn't apply for it.
Even during the ice storm, our folks here were busy at school preparing a mailing to over 3,000 homes that outlined the STAR program so that people would be reminded to contact their town assessor. So even though we all were under difficult conditions at the time, we still made sure we got those out in a timely manner.
Any idea percentage-wise how much, you say substantial, but percentage-wise how much a person could save in the STAR program?
Well, when it's fully implemented for the senior citizens, it could be as much as 40% or more. It all depends, of course, on the exemption that they get, or but it could be as much as that, and that's very significant. And for the enhanced program, when that is phased in, it'll probably be 25% savings. So that's considerable, and it's I have to commend the legislature for a progressive step like this.
It's a step we've all been pushing for a long time.
For years and years. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Something else is new this year in addition to that May 19th budget date. The state budget's been passed.
Yes.
That doesn't usually happen in the last
No.
13 years or so, till about June or so.
Right.
So do you know now, at this point, I know the budget axe has been out there with the Governor Pataki's veto, but has he done all his vetoing? Do you know yet what the state's going to be giving
The school?
the school?
Well, it's the actual number of dollars that we will be receiving will only be determined in July or August of this year. But the figures that we have from the state, which are generally very close to the actual amount, would show us receiving an additional $450,000 in state aid for the coming year,
Over last year.
over last year.
Now, is any of that $450,000 to do with the renovations project?
Yes, some of the dollars would attribute to the reconstruction program, but if you net it out, there's more than $200,000 in increased aid for general purposes.
So without the renovations project,
Be
we'd
two-
be looking at a $200,000
Yes.
increase from the state.
Mhm.
Okay, from what I read in the newspaper, except for maybe Altona, and Mowers is pretty close to being level.
Mhm.
But those of us in the Champlain area is going up. If we're getting more state aid, can you tell us in a nutshell why we're going to pay
Why
a
Cham-
higher?
why
the
Champlain
taxes are
would?
going up 3.7?
Why okay. There are 4 towns in the school district, and to begin with, and Altona, only a part of Altona is in the school district, and it's estimated that their taxes would actually go down by 1.26%. I'll touch on Shazy and Moores, and then I'll address Champlain. Shazy would go up about 1.5%, Moores up 0.26%, a quarter of a percent. In Champlain, 3.7%. Now these estimates, first of all, are based on the current assessments for developing the tax levy. So when we have confirmed the new assessments for 98, 99, real property assessments, it could actually affect all of the 4 towns and have a tendency to push down the tax rate a little bit. But when this budget was developed, it was developed using these estimates. So this is what we're using for the time being, and it wouldn't be higher than that. But in Champlain, I believe the reason for the little higher increase has to do with a dramatic change in the equalization rate. It went from about 112 to just about 100. And that had the tendency to shift a little more of the tax burden into the town of Champlain among the 4 towns. So there are many factors that go into it. The equalization rates, which are determined by the state, also the assessments and how fast they grow in a given town, are 2 major factors.
Okay, but overall, if I'm looking at the total general fund appropriation summary, correct? Looks like the overall budget is up about 700,000. Is that correct? From 15,300 to 16. Excuse me, 15,300,000 to $16 million.
Yes. Yep.
So
It's about a 4.6% increase in the budget.
and we're getting, you said 450,000 from the state.
Yes.
So that leaves $250,000 increase for the local
Taxes?
tax abatement.
Yes, it's about a 200,000 increase in the tax levy, which is about a 2.8% increase. Overall, all revenues would be up, other than the real property tax, up 6.3%. Because we do have other income that we receive. For example, the pilot funds that come in, payment in lieu of taxes for all of the new businesses and industries that are relocating in our area. So that's a substantial amount of money now. That's $262,000 a year, it's estimated. We will have a few more students from Vermont coming, and so that will add to our revenues. The tuition for non-resident students is approximately $4,000 a year, and mostly because of the numbers are not that significant, those students fit into classes that are already existing, so that does help support the school budget.
I know a month and a half ago to 2 months ago, Isle of Mont was voting whether or not to make Northeastern their school of choice for their students. Did that pass?
Well, I believe it passed locally, but that was just one of several steps that have to take place over in Vermont in order for that to actually happen. So that's basically what we know about it at this time.
I talked to people from other school districts. They're amazed that we get people from Alberg and Isle of Mont. I think it's great because, as you said, they're not increasing our expenditures by any great means, but they're increasing our revenues.
Yes, they are.
Because they're coming in and filling up classrooms.
And the way the state aid formula works, we get state aid on them, which is an interesting fact also.
New York pays for
and there are many other benefits to us by having those Vermont students here. It's a very nice experience for both our students and their students, have a chance to meet one another, and we've developed some very nice relationships with the Vermont schools.
Okay. For the time being, I guess I'm out of questions.
Okay.
So if you want to go ahead with what you prepared,
Well,
I'll sit back quietly and listen.
All right, and please, if you have any questions as we go along. I would just like to perhaps highlight a few of the improvements that we're planning for next year. And among them would be that we will need to increase our secondary staff. And when I say secondary staff, I mean middle high school, grades 6 through 12, by about 1 1/5 teacher. Primarily the reason for that is twofold. One, we have a larger student population, particularly at the 9th grade. We will be about 160 9th graders next year, and that's up about 30 over the normal course of enrollment. And so that's one factor. The other factor is all of the initiatives by the state and ourselves regarding to the higher standards. For example, we will be taking a Course 1 mathematics class and dividing it into 2 parts so that more students could be better prepared to take a Regents and pass a Regents in these difficult courses. But it might be difficult for them to absorb all that material in 1 year. So of course, to do that, it does take a little more staffing. So for those 2 reasons, we would be looking at some additional staffing next year. So it would be maybe a 1/5 or 2/5 in the math area, maybe 1 more course offering in social studies and so forth. When I say 1 1/5, that amounts to 6 sections of teaching. We are increasing our support for the computer instruction program, Calvin. The budget will rise from somewhere around $50,000 to it's probably $57,000 to about $93,000, and our intention would be to acquire 3 clusters of computers a cluster for each of the 3 elementary schools. This past year, as you recall, we put a lab of IBM compatible computers in the middle high school, and that's worked out just great. And we need to do something at the elementary level, and so that's our intention. And what do I mean by a cluster? That would be a grouping of about 7 or 8 computers at each site. They are expensive, and that's probably what we're able to do for the coming year. As we've probably talked about at other times, we are looking at a bond issue down the road to provide all of the necessary computers that we're going to need in the future. But this is our effort through the general fund budget to move forward in this area.
Well, computers it's so easy to become obsolete in such a short span of time, but it must be difficult at a school level to keep up. I bought a computer 2 years ago, and I had a lot of memory. Now the guy I bought it from said, "Well, how come you want so much memory?" I said, "Well, I want to be ahead of the curve, but now I'm so far behind in just 2 years' time that it's unbelievable."
Yeah. Well, what we've done in the last a couple of years is we've started to lease computers rather than to purchase them, so that we don't have a problem of a lot of obsolete equipment. We're trying to get to a point where we have modern equipment for the children to work on, for the students to work on. As you know, if you work on a computer, that as you say, they can become obsolete very quickly, and so we're trying to set the stage so that we can keep up as best as we can afford. Moving into some of the other areas, we're anticipating, with budget approval, the possibility of 3 additional days of school counselor services at the elementary level. The need for such services is tremendous, and we've talked a long time about doing this, and we're hopeful that we'll be able to accomplish this in the coming year.
3 days per week.
Three additional days of service. We have 1 full-time counselor at the elementary level spread among the 3 elementary schools. So this would provide a little more service at each school.
So you're doing 3 days a week?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. We would continue the outdoor education program and the agricultural program that was begun some time ago. Of course, the outdoor ed program is in its 33rd year now. And continue field trips, continue the interscholastic athletic program, and there's increased support for the interscholastic athletic program, including an additional $1,000 for ice time. The students have been raising a large sum of money to pay for their own ice time, and so we're trying to help a little more in that area. And also we are trying to replace some uniforms that very desperately need replacing. And while I'm here, I've just got to say thank you to the Booster Club, because they made a large donation this year to help with that particular cause, and we were most appreciative of their efforts. They donated more than $10,000 to us for uniform replacement. They're very expensive, as you would know.
And it's just a small handful of people that are that Booster Club. Many of the parents help out in small ways. It's amazing what that little group has done. And it's not just sports, they do it for other groups too.
Yes, they do. They help in a lot of ways. We appreciate it very much. We've had an increased allocation for the last 3 years for textbooks, and that has made a tremendous difference in us being able to keep current with modern textbooks for the students. And the library area, we're doing a number of things there. We are developing an electronic library. So there's not only the funding necessary for the library books, but it's for the necessary equipment, the servers, the computers, and so on, to allow our library to become electronic. And what do I mean by that? Students will be able to access information from local libraries and also from resources like the Smithsonian Institute and other places electronically through the computer. They'll be able to query the computer to find out everything there is to know about the Civil War, for example. And this will prepare them when they go on to college, university, and into the workplace where they have libraries as well. It'll well equip them to make an easy transition beyond high school.
On that subject, first of all, I noticed you mentioned the Smithsonian, and did a story last fall on the Adirondack Museum, which is called the Smithsonian of the Adirondacks. And I've seen that they just got a website,
Oh,
so
great.
that'd be interesting. But what crossed my mind is if theoretically, if you have a library with 1,000 books, you could have 1,000 people accessing one book each at a given time. Or you could have a computer that might have information of 1,000 books available to it, but only one person at the computer. Is there a ratio that a school would look for to have X number of computers based on X number of students? Because obviously if you've got 5 computers and 20 students want to use it, it can't happen.
Well, I think there, depending on who you talk to, the ratio would be higher or lower. We're talking about having 15 or 20 computer workstations in our media center, in our library, for direct access. You still will have many students who are going to go to an encyclopedia or other resources that would be on hand. But you'll have a larger number of students who want to access other libraries in the North Country or other resources like Smithsonian or the like. But not only will they be able to access from the library, but down the road they'll be able to access from the classroom. So, and there'll be computers in the classrooms and computers in labs in each building, whether they're in clusters of 8 or in labs of perhaps 25. So there will be easy access to all these resources in the future. This is what we're building toward.
Okay.
Alrighty, and we are planning to continue our summer school this year. It'll be the 13th annual. Last year was probably, we had our highest enrollment, approximating 235 or 40 students in 18 programs, and it was a big success. In recent years, we have been purchasing our buses through the general fund budget rather than financing them, and there are plans for the purchase of 3 school buses if the budget is approved this year. And one of the major points of discussion at the budget development workshops relative to transportation has to do with the purchase of two-way radios, we call them FM radios, and video cameras to complete installation on all NCCS school buses. Right now, 11 or 12 of our 32 units have video cameras and radios. And for a lot of reasons, for the safety of the children, for good communications, and for security reasons, we are requesting the funds to purchase radios and cameras for the remainder of our fleet. Our plan to date has been to phase them in as we buy a bus, but because of the times, we find it necessary to request the funds to complete the process in a more timely manner. And of course, as we replace buses, these cameras and radios and so on can be transferred to new buses. We have increased our support for maintenance of our facilities. We're phasing down on the reconstruction program. We still have several projects to complete, but I would say we're at the 85 or 90% point with the reconstruction being done on our facilities. And we have our facilities in good shape now, and we have increased our funds a little bit so that we can be sure to do the maintenance that's so important to keep our buildings up. And while talking about repairs, the Moores Elementary School requires a replacement of its septic system over there. And we are working with the state education department and a local engineer to cost out and get the approvals and complete the replacement of the septic system at the Moore School. And that's estimated to cost somewhere between $20,000 and $50,000, depending on the requirements of the state Department of Environmental Conservation and the other agencies that have a hand in the necessary approvals. We're planning to purchase 1 classroom of school furniture, and that would be in the secondary school, and also 6 cafeteria tables to be spread among the elementary schools, approximately 2 tables per building there. So those are the major improvements planned for 98 and 99. Colin?
Okay.
Now, we talked a little bit about revenue and probably covered that pretty well. I would just point out that as we've discussed earlier in summary, that the state aid for next year has increased significantly, and we're pleased to see that. Of course, there are always strings attached to any state aid that you do get, but I think we were pretty lucky that we have avoided the vetoes that came after the approval of the legislature. Most of the vetoes were for what I would call the extras. Each community, I'm sure, needs additional resources to accomplish certain projects that they feel are important. But the basic state aid is in place. It was probably some of the extra kinds of things that were vetoed. It was the largest increase in state aid in years.
Do you think this is a trend or just a one-shot fluke?
Well, it remains to be seen, but I think Wall Street is doing well, and I think that allowed the state to be able to do this. The state is, however, taking on a tremendous responsibility with the STAR program. Statewide, I believe that's estimated to cost well over $1 billion a year to implement that program. So it is a large fiscal responsibility that they've taken on here, and I think if Wall Street continues, I think it'll look pretty good for the next couple of years. But if the economy slows down, I think it will present some concerns in terms of being able to continue the amount of state aid that they're sending to the public schools. I think they're also sending some state aid to the public schools, recognizing how important education is, and the fact that our students have to be well prepared when they go into the workplace, and that we are expecting more of our students when they do go into the workplace, that they will have to be well equipped to get right down to work and to be productive in the workplace. So that's part of where all of this, these initiatives come from. And again, we mentioned the pilot agreements as far as increased revenues. So overall, the revenue picture looks good as we go into 1998-99. I should mention to you that included in the budget is a sum of $9,000 for each of the 3 community libraries, and by that I mean $3,000 each for the 3 libraries, a total of $9,000. And it affects the tax rate by just pennies. And basically, when the trustees of those 3 libraries ask for an increase, then it goes on as a proposition at the annual meeting, and you've seen that many times in the past, but this year they elected not to ask for any additional money, so there's no vote that's required. It remains at the same level as the past year.
So it's automatic. That used to be a separate item,
It was,
as well
yes.
as were other things. And particularly for the people in the Champlain Elementary, the library right in their front yard.
Yes.
It's almost part of the school.
Yes, and it is used on a regular basis. And our libraries are very important. We need to support our community libraries. I'll mention also to you that we have 2 members seeking seats on the Board of Education. Incumbent Michael Inkoviak, 5-year term, and Timothy Matat, 5-year term. And they're running unopposed.
People aren't exactly breaking down the doors trying to get on the school board, are they?
So our next opportunity to review the budget is on the 18th of May at 7:30 p.m. in the high school auditorium. And then the vote is from 12 to 9 p.m. on the 19th, and you vote at 2 locations. On the west end of the district, it's at the Moores Elementary School in the gymnasium. And on this end of the district, the eastern end of the district, you vote in the new middle high school cafeteria, which was the site of the old junior high cafeteria and the lecture hall.
Is that the same location that used to be?
Basically,
in
it's
school?
the same location, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Anything else, Chris, that you
Well, in the way of concluding, I would just encourage everybody to exercise the right to vote, and we look forward to seeing them both at the opportunities to review the budget on the 18th. Again, any questions about the budget, any concerns at all, please feel free to speak to any of the building principals or call the district office here at 298-8242. Calvin, I'd like to thank you. You're just wonderful to come out every year and to spend this time with us so that we can review the budget. I think it's a great aid to the community in that if they're unable to get to a budget hearing, that they are able to get the benefit of the information from you over Hometown Cable, Calvin. So we appreciate that very much. And I also would like to take the opportunity to thank the school board, because they have invested hundreds of hours in putting together the school budget with the staff here, and a special thanks to Sheila Miller of our staff, who grinds away with all the numbers and calculations and so forth to put together this budget for us. So a lot of people to thank, a lot of people participate in this process, and we thank them for it. So that's what I have to share, Calvin. If you have any other questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
No, I'm not bashful about asking questions.
I know that.
So again, we'll say it one more time. That if you're watching this on the 11th, there is a school board meeting on the 11th at 7 p.m. And the only hearing scheduled on this budget. But if people on the 11th have a question, you wouldn't be opposed to answering it. So if you're watching this early on the 11th, and you've got a question, don't wait till the 18th. Come on down and ask your question. Otherwise, the 18th. Now, in the past, there had been a hearing in Moores and one at the middle school. This year, just the one in the middle school.
We had a hearing at Moores on the 4th of May at 7:30, and we had 2 school people attend. Two of the building principals were in attendance, the school board members, and the budget development person, and myself. And but we had no residents come to the meeting. I know you've been to a number of those.
Yes.
Where
pack up and leave as soon as we get there.
yeah, we're prepared to answer their questions, but we didn't not have anybody attend that meeting.
Okay. Very good. Thank you, Chris.
Okay. Thank you, Calvin, very much.
All right.
Thanks.